15, and you go east, there's that first stop. Second line, turn left. You meet the country club most of the time. Second line. Talking about many candidates, Senate candidates, Senate districts.
Not your own food, huh? Oh, you know it. No, I haven't. Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started. Good to see people from East County Tea Party here. Joni, thank you for coming. Don, and San Diego Tea Party, of course. Even. All right, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. There's our flag right here. And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Monsignor Halverson, would you please come up and lead us in prayer, please?
I'd like to make a little bit of a comment. If you read your Bible in the Old Testament, you'll find that God took care of his people as long as they followed his ways. When they didn't, of course, they received the punishment. The people of Israel wanted to have a king, just like the neighboring countries, and God said, no, you don't need a king. And they said, well, we want to be like the other people, we want to have more government. So they appointed Shaul. They say in English, Saul. You know where that was. Then they said, well, we're going to have another one, David. You know where that went. Bathsheba, sort of thing. Didn't work out, did it? And they said, well, the penultimate will be Shlomo. In English, Solomon. And that really didn't work out. You know how many concubines he had, whatever. So when we say, well, we need the government to do it, sometimes we need the government not to do it, to be left out. And that's a tendency of all of our political groups to say, well, the government should do this and that.
Speak up.
Shouldn't speak up. Okay. Put it closer, okay. So let us pray. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Dear Heavenly Father, be with the Tea Party. Thank you for the organization that they have and for their efforts. Not that they all turned out the way we wanted to, but let us persist. And may you guide us, and protect us, and make the government change and realize that we've gone way out of whack. Can't afford the government we have already. Be with each and one individual and those who are presenters this evening. We ask this all in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Good evening, everybody. Well, like you, after being in a depression for about 3 days after the election, maybe I don't know if I'm ever out of the depression, but you know what? Life goes on. Are we going to learn from what we've, what we did wrong? And this is an effort. I've gotten to know Rich pretty well. We've gotten to know each other very well, and I think we agree on like 98% of the time. And we're both passionate, but we're not so intense that we drive each other crazy. So anyway, my thought is that to start consolidating the effort. And I know John Stahl's been talking about this too. And what we're trying to do is consolidate our efforts and to speak more with one voice. So that's the idea. I wanted to throw out, I mentioned to Rich that we could call it the San Diego Regional Tea Party as an effort to consolidate all the tea parties and to increase our efforts. And I know, so John Stahl will be discussing later how we need to consolidate our efforts on getting behind a conservative candidate so we don't keep splitting. I won't take your thunder, John. I'll let you talk about that. All right, so we got 4 organizers here tonight. Maggie, say hello to Maggie. Ask Sarah in the back. She's Santee Tea Party. And of course, we got Lynn over here. Lynn, if you'd stand up, please. There's Lynn. Everyone knows Rich, of course. And then myself, East County Tea Party, and I'm starting to slowly bring some people over here because of that. We have some very good speakers here tonight. I'm sorry. I guess I didn't say my name, did I? Barry Willis, yes. I'm sorry. We'll start with that. So anyway, after being depressed for a few days, I said, you know what? We got to move on. I'm ready for the fight. And I keep coming back to this one thing. What the Founding Fathers went through. I don't think we're anywhere near what the Founding Fathers went through. They lost everything. They lost their homes, they lost their lives, they gave everything on the line. And maybe it'll get to that point that we have to but we've got to keep fighting. And we've got to keep getting behind candidates that are the right candidates that represent our value. And we have to increase our efforts and increase our ways, improve our ways of marketing. So it's like a business. We're actually marketing out there, and we have to consider how we're doing it. Those are some of my impressions. All right, so we have a number of speakers tonight, and our first one is Dran, D-R-A-N, Reese, and T-Evangelicals. I heard that phrase coined the other night, and I thought, oh, that's an interesting concept. All right, so this is Dran Reese. So welcome, Dran Reese, please.
Hi, how are you? Good. Okay, would you give me like a 5-minute warning? So, okay. I'm not sure how long I have to speak, and I'm really not going to speak because tonight is more about discussing what the T-Evangelicals are. And if you came in, you all received a piece of paper that said T-Evangelicals on it. Do you all have that? We do not have that. Okay, Barbara, if anybody's raising their hand, Barbara will come and bring that to you. because what I want to talk about is what is it? Now, first of all, you should be getting a sign-up sheet, so while we're discussing this, and this will be a little bit of a discussion, I'll open it. Go ahead and fill this out. This is not going to separate you at all from what you're currently doing. It's just going to be, and not even an ad. We don't want to add anything more to your life. We just want to identify those that want to do a few things in this area. Okay, so you have a sheet, you can fill that out. And then you also have another sheet, Principles in Prosperity, Purpose in Education, and some of my favorite quotes, because it really comes down to this, people. Ask not what you can do for what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And then furthermore, you know, I'm an evangelical, and I have an organization called Salt and Light Council. How many of you know what Salt and Light Council does? Okay. How many of you go to church? Okay, well, just about as many that go to church know Salt and Light Council, and there's probably a good reason for that, because you're keyed into what Salt and Light Council does. And what we are is trying to engage the church in this battle. Because it comes down to this: if the very foundations of our nation fall away, the church is responsible. Now, the church means the people who are Christians. And what that means is that they're not voting their values. And when we talk about getting good, solid conservative candidates, one of those definitions of what a conservative is someone who's principled. And that's what the T-Evangelicals is here to do, is to help identify what those principles and those standards are. There are some things that are simply not negotiable. And we have to decide, we're going to get back to some principles and standards that are not negotiable, or what are we standing for? If you don't stand for something, you fall for anything, and that's where we're at. And furthermore, Matthew, I have to put my glasses on, Matthew 16:26 says, "For what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul?" Okay? Here, let's face it. Money or your soul? Money or your soul? You really think about it. Would you prefer to have money over doing the right thing for it? Would you rather lie, steal, cheat, or have greed to get whatever it is that you need? Well, if you're that kind of person, well, welcome to the government. I mean, we have a corrupt government that is misusing, stealing, and has sold its soul. America's soul has been sold. Now, I say it's about time that we, personally and individually, start gaining some standards and living for a higher purpose in life. And what that means is it means it's going to be hard, because you're going to have, like me, clear up a few things in your life. A little bit of repentance doesn't hurt. A little bit of turning from your wickedness and wicked ways, as it talks about in the Bible. But basically, all of us have done things that we're ashamed of in our lives. But we have a very forgiving God up there. Hosea 4:6 says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Okay, look at who's voting for who out there. I mean, do you really want to say that those people are intelligent, thinking citizens? Really? The reason that we have the government that we have is because they know that they have a mass audience of people they can manipulate by giving them handouts, by promising them greater tomorrows, lying to them. Okay, and you know what I'm talking about. We need to help everybody in America, everybody, including those that are poor and impoverished, to have wisdom and knowledge and pure education. So T-Evangelicals here is about education, education, education. And that's what we talk about with Principles in Prosperity, because we're going to put principles to our money. Not money and then principles. We're going to find out what those principles are that make the almighty dollar so valuable and have kept the United States of America the most prosperous, generous nation in the entire world and in the history of mankind. Isn't that a privilege to be here in this country? Everybody wants to come here. Everybody wants to have the opportunity to earn. Everybody wants to have the right to be able to earn and keep what they earn. We need to get back to those principles in prosperity. And when it talks about purpose in education, really, people, we all know that we're dying because we don't really understand what's going on so many levels. But it's about time that we learn. Now, most of you here in this party are way ahead of the curve, let's face it. You're keyed into things like Agenda 21, what's happening in the UN, election integrity, are the fiscal problems. So good for you. Good for you. Let's take it a step further and drill it down just a little bit and get back to the basics of what are the principles behind these issues. And then once we've been able to define them and agree on them, because frankly, we don't get an opinion. I know you want one, and there are gazillions of opinions, and I bet each of you have about 2,000 of those on any one subject. But if you really think about it, standards and principles are known quantities. And that's what we are here to do, is find out what those known quantities are, stop stressing out about having an opinion, just fall in line with what is right of nature's God. Remember the Declaration of Independence? Nature's God. We've got to get back to what is right. Gravity is not something we can legislate. Frankly, air is not something we could legislate. But they're sure trying, and I'm sure they're going to go after gravity if they have a chance. Okay, so 2 Timothy 1:3, I thank God whom I serve with a pure conscience, as my forefathers did. Wow. And it was Barry who said that as well about our forefathers. Those people put their life on the line for you and me to sit here today. How dare we take what they did for granted? We need to learn how they thought, what they believed, why they did it, and the inspiration that made them put their lives on the line. They were indestructible until the appointed time of their death. And do you know why that is? Because they had a purpose. They had a future. Now, we have gotten a little lazy in America because God has blessed us so much that we don't have just one car, we have two. We don't have one house, we have a few. And on it goes. Now, that's nice. God has blessed us. But to misuse that and to worry all the time about how much we're going to have and whether or not we're going to have the character and the integrity that goes along with it, 5 minutes. Okay, good. That's very good. All right, so, and then the very last one, those who don't know their history are destined to repeat it. So with that, I am going to jump right in to a couple of things I'm hoping that we can do together, and that is, who should get involved? All of you. I'm hoping all of you will get involved. You have the form. I'm leaving here very soon because I'm actually going to have dinner with my daughter. So if you really want to be a part of this, fill it out. I'll take it with me, move to the center aisle, and I'll walk down the center and take it. Or you can give it to Rich afterwards. But I thought there's a couple of ways we could get started, since we're going to be doing education, education, education. I know you all know the Constitution. Well, I hope you do. But I have a game, and how many of you have seen this, Constitution Quest? Well, I got trained on this the other day, and it is brilliant. It is fabulous, and it's fun. And I would like to ask you to fill out your form, put your information on it, and mark off the upper portion of that says Learn the Constitution Quest. You will learn the Constitution in a few nights by playing this game. We'll have fun. We're all fairly ignorant to a lot of what's in the Constitution, but you won't be after you play this. We can do teams. It'll be a lot of fun. But that's what T-Evangelicals is going to offer you, is education, fun and inspiring ways of doing that, but also getting back to our roots and principles. And I hope that you will take this opportunity and join with us, because without God, we are destined to fail and destined to go under. So I thank you so much, and God bless you.
So you have a lot of materials over here, Tran?
I gave everybody something.
Okay. I like that. Constitution Quest, I like that. All right, so we're going to have John Stahl speak next. So John, why don't you come on? And are we doing should we do candidate announcements? No. Okay, not tonight. Okay. All right, everybody. John Stahl.
So let's take a look here. This is what I call planning for 2014. And welcome to the San Diego Tea Party, but I guess the name's now changed, right? Okay, we're good. So it's going to be the San Diego Regional Tea Party?
I hope everyone likes that idea.
Okay, so let's take a poll. Who was not happy with the fiscal cliff deal? I just like Ed Schultz, I stack these questions so that they're 98% in my favor. Who thinks they will be disappointed with the debt ceiling deal? This federal government is going to spend $47 trillion over the next 10 years, and the regular Congress that we're paying $174,000 to a year that worked, I think, less than 200 days last year.
Plus benefits.
Yeah, couldn't come up with 1% in cuts. It's just ridiculous. The GAO issues a report every year that says there's 1,500 programs at the federal level that are 1,500 programs that are duplicative, fragmented, ineffective. So the regular guys couldn't get the job done. They appointed the super committee. Everyone remember that? 12 people, 6 from the House, 6 from the Senate, 6 Republicans, 6 Democrats. 2 months later they came back and said, we can't find anything to cut. I would suggest take that GAO report, Pareto those programs, bring in the 6 people that run duplicative programs, and say, look, we're going to give you 2 months to come back and tell us how you're consolidating this and saving us $50 billion a year. Who thinks they will be disappointed with the budget deal that might come up? Okay, I'm in the right crowd, and this is a good crowd. Okay, where do 7 of the 10 wealthiest counties in the United States reside? Well, let's take a look. Let's just be fair. New York, the financial capital of the world, right? That might be a good choice for where 7 of the 10 wealthiest counties reside. How about Los Angeles, the entertainment capital of the world? That's where the $20 million film people live. You would think there'd be plenty of wealth there. How about San Francisco, the technology capital of the world? The headquarters for Facebook, Google, Apple, Intel, all those companies. Does anyone think that this covers it? Let's try that the answer is a combination of all 3 of those. If those are the 3 capitals of the world for finance, technology, and entertainment, you would think that 7 of the 10 wealthiest counties surround those 3 cities, correct? Well, guess what? Here's another answer. How about none of the above? You guys are smart. I like that kind of a crowd. The answer is Washington, D.C. 7 of the 10 wealthiest counties in this country surround Washington, D.C. That's where the bureaucrats, the career politicians, the liberals, the progressive, the revolving door people, the inside baseball people, the progressives, and the public sector unions all live. 80% of congressmen that get beat become registered lobbyists within 3 months. A lady in Missouri resigned after winning an election to become head of some electric cooperative. It was on CBS the other night. So this is no longer about Republicans versus Democrats. This is about people who understand what built America. I don't know how many people on the History Channel saw The Men That Made America. It was a series that ran a couple of months ago. Quite good. So the History Channel's got a lot of good series coming up here lately. And this is about people who understand the sacrifices that were made by our forefathers and our veterans. And the fiscal conservatives that are left. And it's against these groups, bureaucrats, progressives, Democrats, liberals, public sector unions, revolving door crowd, and the media, which doesn't help the Tea Party hardly at all. So here's my view of the world. I ran for Congress in 2012. There were 10 people in the race. There were 5 Republicans. I finished second. Didn't show very well. And the results was that we got nothing to show for it. But my analysis is that we need a process of unification and inclusion within the Republican Party. We need to bring these groups together. If we can't find a way to unite ourselves and rebrand the Republican Party, then we have no chance to win anything. Without it, fiscal conservatives are an endangered species. So everyone in this room is like one of those little white, whatevers you see on TV where they say they're endangered species. It's just not going to work. The bureaucrats, the unions, the Dems, the liberals, and the progressives wins. In the state of California, the public sector unions own this state. They run the situation, whether it's the prison guards, the gay lobby, whatever it's going to be. They get it done. So the status quo is out. We need a paradigm shift. We can no longer think inside the box. We've got to come up with some new ideas, because when you look at the results from 2012 here in San Diego County, the Republican Party won no race that was not a safe seat. So fine, Duncan Hunter, who's in a 60-40 seat, he won re-election. Whoop-de-doo. They won no race where it was even competitive or close to being competitive. Ronald Reagan said that status quo is nothing more than Latin for preserving the mess we're in. And I think that's exactly where we are. So we cannot no longer have the status quo. He also said that freedom is never more than one generation from extinction. And I believe that also to be very true. So we've got ourselves in a very tough situation right now, ladies and gentlemen. And we either have to figure out how to work together and to get these groups in the county organized, work out a deal with the Republican Party, and come together to win races in 2014. We lost. Get over it. We were out-messaged. We were outnumbered. They were better organized, but it's time to change that. 30 to 40 fragmented groups in San Diego County will not work. We've got to figure out what races we can win, get organized, have people from outside that district come together to win those races. Now, San Diego is a very unique situation in America. I can't think of another place that's as unique as San Diego. We have a single media market. One set of radio stations covers the entire county. We have clean boundaries that are north, south, east, and west. The ocean, Mexico, the desert, Camp Pendleton. So we can handle this. It's all within our reach. If you look at some of these gerrymandered districts, if you go to FEC.gov and look at some of the geographic boundaries, some of these crazy situations in Texas and Mississippi and Florida, it'll drive you nuts looking at all this gerrymandering. We have a fighting chance if we can reunite Republicans, Independents, and Libertarians. If we stand divided, we will win nothing. So we've got to find some common ground, we've got to find some core beliefs, and we've got to figure out how to bring this together. We need to get organized, we need to get focused, and we need to get active. So I appreciate what Rich and Barry are doing to try to bring a couple of the groups together. We need an Air Force or a coalition. We need to have 30 or 40 different groups in a county, each maintaining their own identity, but working towards a larger purpose. So let iCaucus do some of the vetting. Let Voter Integrity Project help us there. Let iCaucus and the other groups get involved. Let Salt and Light come together. Let's find common ground, and let's work together. There's the applause for this group of lists. So this is just a portion of the groups I could put together in about 10 minutes that are in the county, that are conservative Tea Party groups, that we need to try to figure out how to come together, how to set up an organization, and establish some committees to get some stuff done. We need what I'm calling a 48+6 strategy. The Republicans could run and get a candidate in there and get 48% of the votes, and they're not going to win. I think that our groups can bring together another 6 to the number, and that turns that into 54. And that's how you win some of these races. Synergy with the Republican Party works, fragmentation loses. United we stand, divided we accomplish nothing. The Republican Party, I don't know who was the closest associate here with some of the people on the Central Committee and the Executive Committee, but they have to be looking at themselves after this last election and come to some realization that says, look, we got a real problem here in the county, we didn't win a single race, and how are we going to get reorganized to help ourselves? And I'm including the RFWs in that, the Tea Parties, all the conservative groups, the Central Committee, the whole thing. We've got to figure out how to broker a partnership. The San Diego Republican just voted for the status quo. They re-elected every one of their prior officers. So that's going to be a tough challenge there. Talk about status quo. I wish we could get a tape of Ronald Reagan speaking on that topic. All the same players are in place. But the reality is, and we've got to convince them, because if we get unified, we can go to them and say, look, we have a coalition of 35 groups in the county that can get 2,000 people to walk a precinct, to be at a rally, to get involved with some sort of a town hall meeting or some sort of a debate sequence. Republicans are on the verge of extinction in California. I don't know how many people heard this, but for the very first time, the registration of Republicans on the state level is less than 30%. There's not a single statewide office holder that's a Republican. And this party brand has been damaged over the last number of times. You can watch MSNBC and see it all day long. That's all they talk about is how evil we are and extreme and all that sort of stuff. The reality that we have to come to is that not all races can be won. Does everyone understand the term gerrymandering? Okay, that goes on quite a bit. In the state of California, there's 53 congressional seats. 40 plus of them are gerrymandered to be safe 60-40 or better in the favor of one person or the other. You go to some of the other states like Texas, it's even worse. So gerrymandering to me has been a very corrosive force in this country. I think we should have reverse gerrymandering. They should be required every 10 years to make the districts competitive. In San Diego County, we have 5 congressional seats. 4 are safe, 1 is competitive. If you can draw 4 60-40 seats, you can draw 4 50-50 seats and make them competitive. Get these guys off their ideological side, solve problems, and get the job done. We talked about that. Incumbents are tough to beat. 95% of them win, and that's with an 8% approval rating. So I don't know who would agree that you should get reelected if you have an 8% approval rating. But with the safe seats, it's there. You need a death or a retirement, or you need a serious scandal. So Anthony Weiner had to step down for what he did with his photographs, right? But 17 years of tax evasion for Charlie Rangel wasn't enough to get him out of office. So it's pretty tough to get one of these incumbents out. Safe seats. Everyone understands the term safe seats? Basically, I mean, if we were going to try to get rid of Juan Vargas, he's in the 70-30 district. You would have to get 1/3 of the Democrats to vote for you to get rid of Juan Vargas. You know, he spent, I think it was $1.2 million promoting Michael Cremens so that the other lady, DeChera, didn't get in. You know, it's just that ridiculous, so it's quite bad. So it makes the districts non-competitive. So here's my proposal. I want to run it by you guys. I want to see if we can get enough common ground to move forward with this. Or you could say, hey, the guy's full of hot baloney. We need to bring together a coalition of conservative, Tea Party, Republican groups in the county of San Diego. There's no other way to win it. We need to pick the races that can be won. We need to agree on a set of core principles. We need to vet candidates. We need to have a playoff system. What I propose is that we figure out if we can get 35 or 40 conservative groups in the county together to say, yes, we are supporting this effort, then we can go to them with a proposal. Now the proposal would be that we have a playoff system. How many people like the NCAA basketball tournament? Most everybody does, right? If you feel that your school at least had a chance to play and they got beat, fine. But if you're told your school isn't good enough to be in the race, in the tournament, you don't feel too good about helping and supporting the NCAA. So let's have a playoff system. Let's have the Republican Party have 60% of the votes, and the Tea Party coalition have 40%. We have a debate. I go to their monthly meetings. I went till a couple months ago, and they're pretty boring. I'd rather have 2 candidates that are running for Congress, State Assembly, City Council, Mayor, get up there and tell us how they're going to cut spending, how they're going to balance their budget, instead of all this fluff discussion that they have where they bring in someone to talk about nothing that's really germane. These problems are serious, ladies and gentlemen, and this federal debt was $1 trillion when Ronald Reagan was president. 30 years later, it's 16 times more than it was back in 1980. So we need to have a playoff system, so that's what we would agree to. And we need to agree to have all of our groups have some sort of a countywide organization. Now, some people would say, well, it's not going to work, let's just go with a third party. I don't believe that a third party is the answer. If you believe that, go talk to Teddy Roosevelt or Ross Perot. You know, I've been watching this thing on the presidents on the History Channel. Teddy Roosevelt, McKinley got shot in 1901. He was the vice president, the youngest guy ever assumed to be the president. And he finished out that term. He got reelected on his own in 1904. And then he stepped aside and he promoted William Taft to be president. And when Taft got elected, Roosevelt didn't like anything that he was doing, so he was going to run against him on the Bull Moose Party in 1912. So a guy that had been elected president of the United States and had been in office for almost 8 years messed up the election. That's how we got Woodrow Wilson. And we wouldn't even have to be listening about Bill Clinton if Ross Perot hadn't won and siphoned off 20-some-odd% of the vote and got Bill Clinton elected. Is there anyone here as part of our discussion that thinks that a third party is a viable option? Okay, make your point?
Third party, you just said we have 48% Republicans, 6% we can bring to the table. I don't think that there's anybody in that 48% that did not include that 6% already in there. I don't think there was any of us here that were voting Democrats and then decided we were going to become part of the Republican Party. That 48% includes the 6%. I'd rather have a strong third party that makes the Democrats and the Republicans go, we got to make something for them, because without them, neither one of us win.
Okay, another comment on that topic?
Europe
Yes,
has
sir.
more than 4 parties. A lot of their countries have
But even in the UK, the Liberal Democrats have very few seats as Tories and Conservatives, right? Labour and Conservatives. Richard, you had a comment on that? Third party?
We developed a couple of strategies, and the Libertarian Party won 200 races.
200 races where?
California.
In California? In the 2012, they won 200 races?
Not in 2012.
No. Well, Lee?
Well, one of the reasons, the big thing is every single voter has to be educated as to who that person is. The Republicans could have won, but we could have captured a lot of the black votes because of our stance on pro-life. But yet they're going with Democrats. They're hearing the wrong message. We need to educate the voters. That's the only way we're going to make any party win in our favor.
Okay, anybody else in the third party? Yeah.
I believe in your general premise of unifying all the different parties, or all the different groups here. But, I mean, we have to make the Republican Party accountable for our values again, or else none of this works. I mean,
No,
I'm so frustrated.
we have to get an agreement with them. If we can't get an agreement with it, it won't work.
I'm so frustrated with the Republican Party that I'm done with them. I've sent my letters to Boehner, and I'm sick and tired of it. I mean, they're just as progressive as the liberals on the left. All they want is their power.
You're right.
So we gotta either
Boehner's
vote
a
these
dumb
people
joke.
out. I don't care if they're Republicans or what. We gotta find candidates that represent our values and vote our own incumbents out to get more people in office that represent what we want.
Okay, so let me just give you the quick experience I had. I ran for Congress in the 52nd District. There were 10 candidates in the race. 5 Republicans, 3 Democrats, 2 independents. And we walked 25,000 door hangers. We got more signatures to get on the ballot than any other candidate in that race. At the end of the day, though, it's not enough. There's too many low information voters that get a door hanger from the Republican Party, or they get a letter or an email, and that's it. They don't care to learn any more about the race. What I'm suggesting is we get an agreement with the Republican Party that we have a candidate playoff system. And so let's say we want to run you against one of their candidates. If we can get a candidate playoff system, and you debate the gentleman, and our 40% vote for you, and we convince 20% of their group to vote for you, then we'll have the Republican Party and the 6% unified behind yourself. If you run independently as a second Republican, third Republican, fine, you might get 4 to 6% of the vote, but the chances of actually winning, because in my mind, this is no longer about finishing third or fourth. This is about winning. And we've got to figure out what races we can win. We've got to have an agreement with the Republican Party that in exchange for our 6% to help the process is to be fair and open and inclusive.
Yeah, I agree with that, but what do you do about all the gerrymandered Republicans that are in there that are just as bad as everybody
Well,
else?
that's part, a little bit farther on in the presentation, about what we need to do to get ourselves in position to win. I mean, I think it makes no sense for us to get behind a candidate to run against Juan Vargas. It's a 70-30 district. It's just not going to happen in any of our lifetimes.
I have a question for you. Let's assume in the playoff the Republican wins.
Right.
Am I going to sell out my principles to support the Republican because he won?
Well, the deal is that we have to have an agreement with the Republican Party of what the principles are, right? So it's not going to be just, hey, we're going to show up and whatever. We've got to reach an agreement that there's going to be fiscal conservatives, they're probably going to be pro-life people, they're going to be solid people that we run through a background check. Now, iCaucus does some very good vetting, and they did a good job there. So I don't even think the Republican Party does any serious vetting. They basically say, who's the guy who's next in line? Okay, he's the guy that's going to be the candidate. So we need to, this is outside the box. This is paradigm shifting. If we can't get an agreement with the Republican Party how to conduct this in a fair way so that our people know that they put skin in the game, that they have a chance to win. If it's already, the deck is already stacked, there's no point. Nick?
Hi, John. Thanks for conducting this. How are you, or how do we propose to try to convince the county Republican Party, since they just re-elected themselves, basically, and
yeah, that's what makes it a little more difficult. But my feeling is if we can get an agreement between 30 more groups, and we can take a half dozen of us and go up to the Republican headquarters and say we want to have a meeting, we want to sit down, we want to have an honest and frank discussion, because at the end of the day you should have all been fired for your performance in 2012, right? You were 0 for 10. I mean, even they fire the guy that runs the Chargers after so many lousy years, right? So this is not going to be easy. I'm not, you know, I think Voltaire said, nothing easy is also great. So this microcosm where we could actually make a difference, where we have a media market that we can have. Now I'll talk a little bit more about some other topics. How are we doing on time, Barry? Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick thing. One of the things that we can't do is totally write off the district. Now, you're
Speak
right
up just a
about
little bit.
what?
A little louder.
Speak up.
Okay. One of the things is we can't totally write off a district like the Vargas district because they're 70-30. What we need to do is actually go into that district and let them know who we are and treat them, you know, and try to educate them. And eventually we might be able to turn them, because the Hispanic voters are more in line with a conservative party than it is with the liberal. It's just that we need to reach out to them, and if we just totally write these people off, as Mitt Romney said, the 47%, then we're going to be losing. So part of the paradigm shift is, even if we don't think we can get that area, we can't be writing them off.
Well, I think that...
And we may not win the first couple, like Lance said, but it plants the seed. And if we do the reach out, if we show them who we are and what we value and that they are the same as we are, then...
Yeah, part of what I'm proposing is that we have a candidate selection committee and a race committee. If you looked at the congressional races for 2012, 99% of the races that were 60-40 or more in one direction were won. There was nobody that beat a 60-40 or better incumbent. So that's a very tough task. What I think we need to do is establish credibility with the media, with the community, and say, hey, we got this guy elected, this lady elected, we won that mayor's race, we helped that city council race. Yes, sir?
Before you go to your thing, what are you going to do about crony capitalism?
Crony capitalism. Well, that's part of the inside baseball revolving door.
Jeffrey Emeralds at General Electric is just pumping tons of money.
Yeah, I think part of our mission in the first session is that we've got to show in San Diego County what we can do. The crony capitalism is a Washington thing, it goes on in the city too, but my view is that we've got to establish credibility here in the county. This is where we live, this is where we want to continue to live, and this is where we can make a difference. We can't affect too much what's going on in Washington, because that revolving door, that inside baseball has been going on for a long time. It's going to be very difficult. Yes, Scott?
Yeah, Scott. It doesn't seem to me to be realistic that you're going to win these races if you can't find the root issue that drives these people to vote. Okay? We're all fiscal conservatives. And I ran in a fiscal conservative as a candidate. And I lost even though I'm a fiscal conservative. That is the issues that are the hot button for the people that won these races were the social issues that we don't want to talk about because we don't agree with them. These are going to be issues that are hard to overcome. How do you overcome people that are getting handouts, that want handouts? It's a difficult thing to overcome. I don't know how you could have won some of these races when Prop 32 took all the wind out of everybody, all the Republican sails. I'm one of them. Prop 30, they were fighting for their lives. Every one of these races, they're going to find an issue because they got better get out the vote than we do. They're going to find an issue that they can jump on, like Prop 32, where they're fighting for their lives. And if we don't find an issue like that, where our voters are fighting for their lives, and it doesn't seem to be, because Prop 30 passed with 60-something%. Even the people, I live in San Diego Unified, we gave people that don't know how to spend money more money. So,
What is that?
I voted no. I'm honest. I'll tell everybody that. The reality is 60%. They only needed 55.
Yeah.
And 60% of the people in San Diego Unified voted to give them another couple of $1 billion. So we've got a lot of issues to overcome. These fiscal issues aren't the key. They're driving on these social issues that we don't want to talk about.
Educating the voters, that's key.
I agree.
Every
Okay, so
single
that's
one
part
of them needs
education,
to.
outreach, and inclusion, so that's part of the process that we're talking about as well. But I don't see why the Republican Party would refuse, if they don't realize that they need outreach, education, inclusion, to turn it around from their perspective as well, then they're not going to be successful. So I don't see what would be wrong with announcing at the Republican monthly meeting that next month we're going to have 2 candidates running for state assembly that are going to debate the issues. And we show up with an extra 200 people that they weren't expecting, and they get some people to come up. And it would be educational. It would show. Some of the candidates they run aren't good on their feet. They aren't good on the issues. And they're just the next person in line. So settle on one person per race within, I use CAF, Conservative Air Force, but within this coalition. 10 candidates was too many. It was in my race. Scott, how many were in your race?
Started out with 4, I got to the primary to the general, and it was 2.
Okay.
But the difference is my opponent, they gave my opponent, and they gave him $150,000, and I was only able to raise 15. I wouldn't run again if I didn't have a substantial amount of money to run, because
Of course.
it was Don and I and 2 other people putting out 1,000 signs, and my opponent never went to one community meeting for 7 months.
Now, how much help did you get from the Republican Party?
I got some money from the Republican
How
Party.
about feet on the street? How about organization? How about phone banking?
I was on every one of their door hangers. I can't talk bad about the Republican Party. As a member, they took care of me well. I mean, I was running in a race that needed to win.
Now, what was the registration in the district you were running in?
You mean as a Republican?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it 40% Republican,
You
45?
got to remember, the primary was just one small piece of the district, and then it went to the entire city.
Okay. But in general, how would you classify the district?
Oh, 50-50.
50-50.
But my opponent got 189,000 votes, and I got 97,000 votes. It was 2/3
Okay.
at the final.
Okay, so that's what we'll see. So we need to focus our energy. We need an outreach program for the community. We need town hall meetings. We need a radio hour. I had a radio show on KCBQ. I would be very much in favor of us going to KCBQ and establishing a radio show where the different groups, 35 to 40 different groups, put in a little bit of money, took their turn, had an agenda, got on the radio, and educated and get more people involved. That's what we've got to do. We need to have some planned rallies and protests. We need a media president and a liaison. You know, someone that can speak to the media for us on our behalf. You know, we might have to think about who that could be and what it would look like, but we need to get this organized. We need to hold debates with Democrats on all kinds of topics: debt reduction, entitlement savings, tort reform, defense spending.
But those aren't the issues that they want to talk about.
Yeah, no, they want to talk about
Then we'll change the list, but, you know.
No, we don't change the list. No.
It's clearly you want. It's clearly you have teachers. The union, teachers union, is the most strongest union in the state,
Yeah.
and they threw $75,000 behind my opponent. I mean, that's just.
Okay. So that's part of figuring out what races we can win. You know, there may only be 6 races that we think that we can win, but I would rather be part of a team that won 4 of the 6, 5 of the 6, than spread ourselves too thin and win nothing, which is what we did. Bill?
Where do you propose to hold the debates?
Well, we'll have to get a committee to decide. I mean, this place can't hold as many people, but I would assume that there's plenty of, I know some of the meetings at the libraries have had some pretty good facilities where you could easily put a couple hundred people in there. We have many universities, churches, all kinds of opportunities. So this is all part about getting involved and trying to establish this together. We need some standing committees. The first priority in my mind is a synergy committee to see if we can get this coalition of 40 groups together with a core of principles. You know, that they're not going to be as much social issues as fiscal, but go to the Republican Party. If we can't strike a deal with the Republican Party, then we're not going to have much of an opportunity. Yes, sir.
I'm interested in what you just said right there. How are you going to strike a deal with the Republican Party, with the Tea Party? Because all I'm seeing all over the place is the Republican Party, Boehner, knocking people out of committees, there are Tea Party candidates that are fiscally conservative. I'm seeing them trying to push us away as much as possible. I mean, what's your plan to go to the Republican Party and get them to agree with things like that?
Well, we're going to have to sit down with them and have an open discussion. I mean, I'm not saying we're just going to go up there and in a 20-minute meeting we're going to get an agreement. It's probably going to take an evolution over a period of time. But I don't believe that unless we can go to them and say, look, we've got 35 to 40 groups that can put 1,000 people in an auditorium or on the streets for a particular candidate or at a rally, then we have no leverage with them, right? They're going to say, I don't need you guys. I'm going to get your votes anyway, probably most of them. But what I'm looking for is us to have the power of 10. This 1,000 people in this Tea Party coalition that can influence neighbors and relatives in the districts to turn that into 50,000 votes. So it's an energy and an outreach that we need to accomplish. Rich, how are we doing on time?
Keep going.
Okay.
Just a comment.
Yeah.
Okay, the only way this is not going to change is Margaret Thatcher's comment. When we run out of all the money, it's over with. And that's what you're talking about.
Well,
If you keep this thing going, they'll eventually run out of money.
No, they're gonna print the $1 trillion coin.
Well, no, yeah, exactly. That's my
But I think part of the
16
outreach
of them
and
in there.
education is
Yeah.
the people who don't care about the fiscal issues, we have to educate them about the fiscal issues. We need to bring those points up. We need to make that point to the people. So the people that don't believe that this federal debt is a problem, we need to educate them. The people that don't think that the economy and jobs is important, we need to outreach to them to make sure that they understand where things happen. So this is not going to be a simple process, a 20-minute meeting up in Rancho Bernardo, we're going to have some big agreement. This is going to take an evolution over a period of time, and for us to establish and show to them we have credibility and critical mass. So the first priority in my mind is a synergy committee to see if we can reach critical mass. Then we need to have a competition race committee. Let's decide on the 10 races, the 12 races, the 14 races, the water board, the school board, the city council, the mayor's race, the state assembly, state senate, congressional races where we might have a chance. And I don't think 70-30 is going to work, but 55-45 would work. Anyone can go to the Registrar of Voters website and get the current registration report by congressional district, state assembly, that sort of thing. I did it myself. In pretty quick order, you can say, look, this is not a hell of a way we're going to have a chance of winning that particular race. So we'll have to decide where we can make a difference, and then we can point to that to grow our numbers and to grow our cause and to get credibility with the local media. Then we probably need some sort of an outreach education committee. Let's go down to certain parts of the county where we don't have the advantage, down in South County, and hold a forum there and bring in a couple of people, maybe to talk pro and con about fiscal sanity, fiscal conservative, and maybe we get to educate some people. I don't necessarily think we could beat Juan Vargas, but we could certainly educate and outreach the people in other areas of the county. So that's all part of that. And then some sort of a media committee where we have a regular deal where the Tea Party isn't just labels it a bunch of extremist radicals and fringe. And that was the point I made. I was watching Ed Schultz before I came down here tonight. They got this guy, Chris Van Hollen. Everybody know who that guy is? I mean, these Tea Party extremists that won't compromise, and I'll compromise. Everyone remember in the presidential days when they asked all 10 candidates if they would agree to $1 trillion in taxes if they got $10 trillion in savings, expenses? They all said, no, I wouldn't agree to that. Well, what did they just agree to? Obama got $1.2 trillion in tax increases and no spending cuts. Now they're talking 1-to-1. I mean, that's ridiculous. You know, the compromise should be maybe $1 trillion in tax increases for $6 trillion in spending cuts. And this is all over 10 years. This is not over any short period of time. Okay, so we've got to work on that. The mainstream media loves to bash the Tea Party. The Tea Party is really a bunch of terrible people. Now, who's not extreme? So if you're running Qualcomm, and you're a Democrat, I think it's well known that Jacobs is a Democrat, and he runs a successful business that lives within its means and does things. Is he labeled an extremist? Is he labeled a radical? No, he's considered a good businessman. If you're a Democrat who lives in any part of the county, pays your taxes, works hard, gets your kids to school, goes to church on Sunday, are you a radical extremist? No. So why is it that the people who think that government should live within their means are extremists, radicals, and part of a fringe group? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So this is part of the branding, this is part of the media outreach that we've got to get established here in the county.
Can you close that door back there?
We can make a difference. And I guess the question is, do you think that this is worth a try? Is it worth it? Because I don't see any other way to win it. I don't think in my lifetime a third party is going to get enough traction in San Diego County to beat any of these guys. Now, we don't always like what the Republican Party stands for and the way they conduct themselves. I can tell you horror stories right and left about my race and what we went through, and all we want is a fair shot and a chance to succeed. So I don't think that's too far out of the norm. But is there a general consensus here that this is something that we should try, or do we not want to try and we'll continue to lose as badly as we did in 2012? Okay. So the first step is I've got a meeting next week with some other groups in the county. I'd like to get Rich and Ruth and Maggie and Nick and anyone else who heads up a group to come to this for the first wave to see if we can get more unification on this and then come back and report where we're going. But my purpose is to try to make this happen. I don't see any other way. When I looked at the results for 2012, it was kind of embarrassing. I thought, geez, these guys told me they had all this figured out. Paul Rove, he was up there with whiteboards, and don't worry about that poll in Ohio or Florida. You know, we're going to win this. These guys don't know what they're doing. They're oversampling Democrats. Well, they got their butts kicked, and they got their butts kicked here in San Diego. So if we can't get the conservatives, the veterans, the Republicans, the RFW groups, the Tea Party groups, all the other conservative groups in this county together, understanding that we don't win unless we get together and unite, we're done. We're endangered species. No, you can just wave goodbye to the American dream for your kids and your grandkids. Okay, so Rich, do we have any more time?
Take some questions.
Okay, let's take a couple. This one.
I think your idea of getting everybody together is really good. What plans do you have to not only, it sounds like it's kind of limiting it to the San Diego County area. What about organizing with different Tea Party groups in other states and doing this, giving them your idea and going, look, we all have it.
Well, my view is if we prove it works here in this microcosm with a single media market, then we can replicate it in other places. But until we establish credibility, until we actually say, we did it, we made this happen, we won these 6 races, it's all just for naught. So I don't want us to get too aggressive. Let's focus on this county. It's a great example of how we can make things done. Yes, sir.
I'm Donald Klaus with the East County Tea Party. My company does business all across the United States. The paradigm, John, that you're talking about is underway. The Tea Party is strong across the United States. I want everyone here to remember we live in the belly of the beast here in the People's Republic of California. The shit don't get no worse than what we have to do. So don't get down. The point is we need to organize. The values that we have are the same as the values that most Californians have, except for the psychos. You look at us tonight, we're mighty whitey. I don't see any of the brothers. I don't see any of the Latinos. We need to do outreach with these people, educate them about what the deal is, and get on it. But remember, we can't overturn what has happened in California in 50 years. We need to go after the races that we can win immediately and build on that over a period of time. For Boehner and guys like that who are sticking their middle finger to the Tea Party and the liberal media, don't sweat it. The Tea Party is what America's about. And you need to know it in other states. My parents live in Texas. They elected Ted Cruz. It was overwhelming. I deal with guys in South Carolina, Pennsylvania, New York. They all supported Tea Party candidates. So don't get overwhelmed by the crap that you hear. What we need to do is we need to come up with a concise program like you're talking about. We need to go out, we need to educate. We're going to take our lumps. We know that they're against us. We know that the media is against us. So what? Go piss off. If we didn't give a damn, we wouldn't be here tonight. But remember, the paradigm is underway because Americans aren't as stupid as the media makes us
Michael Wexler. Tea Party has some success, but we lost 2 Senate races, Indiana and in Missouri, because the candidate who was the favorite of the Tea Party said stupid, heartless things about rape. How are we going to screen that out, and how is the platform of unifying principles going to make sure that people aren't shooting their mouths off about theology?
Well, that's the whole idea behind the playoff system. I mean, you would hope you would vet that out, because if you don't have that playoff system and you just put up the next in line from the Republican Party or the Tea Party, I mean, maybe Richard Murdoch should have been vetted better, they should have prepped him better, or whatever it might be, but that's all to be developed. That's why I think we need to get organized, get started, and if we have a playoff system, hopefully that'll come out, and we'll say, hey, their candidate is actually better than ours, so let's get behind their candidate, let's try to make a difference. Yes, sir.
The foundation is vetting and also making sure we have legal elections aren't rigged and that illegals aren't.
Yeah, and election
That's
integrity
the
probably
foundation. It was the illegal vote that tipped the scales. It was also the fact that we don't vet our candidates.
Okay, so we've got to get going on that. Yes, sir.
2 things. EIP will help, and iCaucus will help.
Oh, I'm a member of iCaucus.
I'm just saying the rest of people.
That's the
also,
foundation.
I think you need to change your terminology. I believe you said something about the word race. And I heard somebody else say rape. Okay, and I heard somebody else talk about the brothers and something. You need to change that language to stay away from anything that's denigrating those people.
Denigrating my butt. I went to Kearney High School. The brothers I deal with all call themselves black. They don't call themselves African American. They're conservative. They'll get involved, but they need a little bit of a push to get involved with us.
Okay. So that's part of our education and outreach program. Yes, ma'am.
Quit being a bunch of cowards.
So what sort of values are you planning to share in common? I mean, what basic ones do you absolutely insist on having agreement?
I think if we don't have a a bedrock of fiscal conservatism, we have nothing, right? So we can argue some other issues and what we should bring up or not bring up. But if this federal debt is not brought under control, if we don't put some sanity into Washington, D.C., if they can't balance the budget for 40 years, then we should get rid of all those guys and find people that know how to balance a budget and know how to ask for sacrifice. You know, so I think that's to be determined, right? But obviously, I think the #1 critical issue is fiscal sanity. Yes, ma'am.
We've got 4 years for the next presidential election.
A little louder.
I'm sorry. We have 4 years for the next presidential election. And during that 4 years, one of the things that we should do is get voter ID in there. You know, in every single
To make the
state.
elections.
And that will help us win, because there won't be able to be voter fraud that way. And by having 4 years and getting that pushed through, the people who would be disenfranchised have 4 years to get their ID.
Okay, so you could get on one of the committees to help understand election integrity and that sort of thing. Yes, sir. Scott.
Just something real quick. How many? I'm a big fan of Duncan Hunter, personal friend of mine. How many people here are for a border fence? We're all for the border fence.
You know what?
Hold on one second. Let me. Hold on. I'm not talking to you. How many people here for border fence? They're about to pass law, and immigration is one of his top things. That's going to change that. So now that we realize that Obama and the Democrats are in control, at least for the next 4 years, are we willing to get into a guest worker program in this group? Because if we're not, this is one of the top social issues that the Democrats are going to win on every single time. And I'm not telling you to make a decision now. I'm just saying, think about it. As much as I'm, hold on, man. As much as I'm a pro-border, pro-gun guy, #1, if we don't get behind a guest worker program, we're going to get run over again on that issue.
Like the Bracero program, what happened to it?
We're going to get run over again. Whether we like it or not, it's going to happen. So we need to make some decisions as a group that these social issues, as much as I don't like them, because I don't like a guest worker program, but we got to be realistic. realistic. If we want to win these races, they're winning these races on these social programs that we don't want to fight because we want to hold to our values. We've got to learn that we're either going to, this country has got a huge Hispanic population. My wife is a legal immigrant, okay? So I know how this situation works. The reality is we've got 20 million illegals, and they're going to be guest workers one way or the other. We need to get our arms around that, or we're going to be sitting outside again when they go from 2/3 to 80% in Sacramento. I'm telling you, these are the kind of issues that are painful, but we're going to have to make those internal decisions that we're going to have to give up on some of these things in order to win back some of these
No
things.
compromise. Let's take one more question. Martha?
Hi, I'm Martha Doran. My focus right now.
Thank you. I didn't know whether I could yell loud enough. I'm past president of the Chula Vista Bonita Republican Women Federated, #1. I'm a monthly person at the county meeting in Rancho Bernardo. I'm a member of iCaucus. I'm a member of Eagle Forum. I'm a member of EIP. I go to all these meetings, and they're all worthy organizations, otherwise I wouldn't be there. However, right now, we have an opportunity to make a difference in the voting of this county. We have an election coming up with a primary on March 12th for the state Senate seat vacated by Juan Vargas, and we need to fill that. And it would be a wonderful idea if everybody could get behind the Republican candidate. There are 2 running for that, and this is what bothers me. And it's what happened in the last election when we had multiple people. Everything got split. We have got to realize we need 1 candidate. Now, I am campaigning for Xanthi Gionas.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
And I am hopeful that she will be the 1 candidate up against Ben Hueso. Xanthi Gionas is 1/4 Latino, and she speaks fluent Spanish. She has a great opportunity to win this seat, and it encompasses 3 counties: San Diego County, Imperial County, and some of Riverside County. It's a huge area. We have a chance to make a difference. It's going to be a short time. The primary is March 12th, and we have to have a primary because there are 2 candidates running on the Republican ticket. And there are 2 Democrats now as well. I don't worry about those 2 on the Democrat side. I'm worried about the 2 on the Republican side. I don't want to see what happened to John Stahl happen again. And there were several races in our Republican community that went this way. And it was division in the Republican Party. It was terrible. I hated it.
What happened to La Jolla? Anyway.
Yeah, we gotta move on, guys. Okay.
So this is an opportunity.
Is there going to
Something that
be
we
is there
can
going to be a
control with
debate?
this, it goes right along with this.
Well, this goes right with the playoff system.
Yeah,
Why shouldn't there be a playoff
but
system?
it's something that we can control as a Tea Party. We need poll watchers. We need people to get out to the polls so that we can cover every single one of these polls.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much for the question and answer session. I'll hang around afterwards. I want to see this move forward.
What an awesome discussion. I love it. And how about, don't get me started on political consultants. Why do we keep retreading the same political consultants over and over again? And who advised Romney to back off on the second debate and not nail him on Benghazi? And anyway, don't get me started on the political consultants. Got me started. All right, you brought up poll watching. Ruth Weiss is coming up. She's election integrity product project. And Ruth will speak with us, whatever. Here you go, Ruth.
Okay, I only get about 5 minutes, and so I can't really tell you too much. But suffice it to say that there is a handout over there at the iCaucus table. If you want to pick it up, it's a summary of what we've done up to this point and where we're headed, and you might want to take a look at it. Basically, I need to assure you that we are the largest, most active, and most effective election integrity organization in the nation. We are only 2 years old. What we have accomplished in 2 years is nothing short of completely astounding. You may not be seeing the results of it yet, but we were able to do quite a bit. By the time that we had the June primary, we had 1,000 poll observers out for the primary. By the time we got to the general election, just a few months later, we had more than doubled that. We had over 2,100 poll observers in the state of California. What makes our organization different from any other organization in any other state is that our observers were armed with official papers, incident report forms, and every time there was an incident, they filled out incident report forms and filed them by signing under penalty of perjury. What's the difference there? All of the other organizations, True the Vote, whatever, in the other 45 states that had some sort of observation process going on, all they did was go out and observe and come back and talk about it, and all they can do is tell anecdotal things. They can't do anything with it. What we got in over 2,000 actionable incidents now, since they are signed under penalty of perjury, they are now actionable. So our next step, if you get this handout, we'll see that one of the 4 planks of where we're headed from here is litigation. You are going to see action taken. You are going to see our lawyers take a look at the evidence we have, and they will have to determine against whom we can file suits and what kinds of suits to be filed. But we have some magnificent evidence. We need to reframe this argument and stop talking about voter fraud, because the major problem is not voter fraud, it's election corruption. The entire system is corrupt from the inside out, all the way from the Secretary of State down, and until we do something about that, there isn't really much we can do. We still need those observers out there. We need a bigger team than we had to observe the vote counting process. We're learning as we go, but it's really important to realize that we have a corrupt system, and we have these unwinnable races simply because the system is corrupt, and we're aiming to do something about that, and we've come a long way so far. We sophisticate our efforts in cleaning voter rolls so that we don't need the enormous number of volunteers that we were utilizing before. We've centralized it. We're using a smaller number of people who are highly skilled at what they're doing. So the whole system of the whole structure of the system is changing. Please understand that we need an army and a half of volunteers at any election time, though. You may not be involved in doing something in between time except just supporting us morally. But we need an enormous number of people, like some of you in this room did, to step up on election day and get out there and work at the polls and get out there and observe the polls, because that's where we can make the difference. Besides litigation, we will be working toward legislation. There's already an initiative, and we have to work on saving the initiative process in California. You understand that. That's real important. And then we have an initiative that's being drafted already that will give us voter ID in California. You realize we had voter ID until 1998 in this state.
Yep. No.
We had voter ID until 1998, and then almost unanimously all the Republicans and all the Democrats in the state legislature voted to get rid of it in 1998, and the state has gone downhill ever since. We need to reinstitute that 80% of all Americans want voter ID in their polls. 64% of all Latinos want voter ID in their polls. 61% of the black population want voter ID in the polls. So even after the other side framing the argument of racism and all that stuff, those are still the statistics. So it's a very winnable thing, but it needs to be with an initiative, and we're working on that. This initiative will also address the problem that I don't have time to get into tonight, and that is the problem of the incredible mess created by provisional ballots. We need to do something about the provisional ballot. Let me give you a quick statistic. In this county, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, because he's done a lot of statistical analysis for it, but in this county, the president won by 52%. That was approximately 52% was his whole take at the end of everything, after every ballot was counted. And yet if you isolate out the provisional ballots only, he won by, almost 75% in the provisional ballots. And that tells me something, and it's not a good thing. So we need to get a handle on these things, and again, I'm gonna say what Lee said, I'm gonna say what Dran said. We need to educate. We need to educate ourselves, and then we need to educate everybody around us. And that's the third plank of the EIP plan going forward, is that we have an election team, committee that we're going to be working on how we educate, what we educate about, and getting materials, getting into the schools, getting into groups like this, and we are going to make sure that people understand why they shouldn't vote by mail, why they shouldn't vote provisionally, why, you know, all of these things that we have made way too convenient and people don't understand the downsides. We're going to educate, and we need every single one of you to help with that, because anytime you learn anything, you need to pass it on. You need to pass it on to every single person you know, and then ask them to pass it on, because that's how we'll get that education done. You need to start educating yourself about the Electoral College, because there's too much of this movement of the national popular vote movement, which will destroy this nation and destroy this republic. The cornerstone of making sure that we do have anything other than chaos in this country is keeping that Electoral College, and we need to educate ourselves on that and understand why. And then the last thing we will do once we get all that in place is communicate this. We'll have a large group of people now that are planning on how do we get these materials that are created by the education team, how do we get that out to the public through social media, through regular media, through all kinds of other unconventional ways, and getting into the classrooms and really being able to educate on a broad scale, because as has been stated earlier tonight, the biggest problem we have is the low information voter. We need to make sure that the voters aren't so low information. And that's everyone's job. That's everyone's job. We have to train ourselves on how to talk this dialogue without controversy, where we can communicate with people without immediately becoming confrontational. We need to be able to talk issues. We need to be able to get the information level up in everybody we talk to, and that's the way we go about it. So if you're interested in picking up this sheet, there's a whole lot of information on the kind of garbage that we saw going on at the polls. I will guarantee you that the electoral process in California is the most chaotic in this nation. It is absolutely unforgivably chaotic and corrupt. And until we do something to fix it, there's not a whole lot we can count on with our votes, believe me. There's a lot more to say. I won't take any more time tonight because I know you have more people to go. But please do pick up this handout. Now you'll be able to see where we've been, what we've seen, and what we're going to do with it. And then please stay in touch. One last thing. If you will do this, it is very free. If you will please go to electionintegrityproject.com. Go to our website, electionintegrityproject.com. And on that home page, sign up to receive the free e-newsletter, because that will allow you to know what the organization is doing, so that you won't feel like, oh, okay, they've gone away and nobody's doing anything anymore. Keep yourself informed. You'll get an email from them maybe once every couple of weeks with some more information, and then once in a while when you can, go to the website and avail yourself of all the wonderful educational stuff that's on the website itself. That's all. You won't get any more emails from anybody else by doing that, but it will keep you informed about what your state organization for election integrity is doing, and you have the best organization in this nation, I guarantee you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. I was over in Vegas and I saw this sign, and you know, only in Vegas do things like this. This guy had a sign, and he said, "Why lie? Please give me money for beer." That reminds me of this for showing your ID for voting. Duh, we want to cheat. Why should we have to show our ID? I mean, it's implicit. Isn't that kind of really the issue? They want to continue to cheat. All right. So our next speaker is Bradley Dean, and Jake is going to introduce Bradley.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back in San Diego. Well, we had limited time to get here. We flew into LAX. We hit the ground about 10 to 5, and here we are. So we were blessed with traffic. I wasn't sure what to expect. But before we get rolling, we want to do a little IQ test to kind of loosen things up here. How many of you were here last time when Bradley spoke? Sounds like okay, good. So we got a whole bunch of new folks. Well, I need some brilliant people out here in the audience, so I need you as volunteers, sir. Come on up here if you would. He's looking at me like he's gonna kill me. Come on up here. Okay, who wasn't here again? How about you, young lady, right there in the black coat? Come on up. You weren't here last time, right? I need one more volunteer. We get one more volunteer. There you go. We got the guy right there. He's got his notebook and everything. He even wore a suit coat. Do you have at least some tattoos or something cool? No? All right, just wondering. We got a little IQ test. I'm going to have Massey start it off. So, Massey.
Hey, good night, or good morning, everyone. Good evening, whatever it is. Thanks for having us, you guys. And here's the IQ test. Miss, I would like for you to come over here right in the middle. And, well, right there, actually, so you don't block the screen. You're blocking the screen. Right there. There you go. I would like for you to turn around and read the phrase in the box out loud, please.
Finished files are the result of years of your blocking the screen. A scientific study combined with the experience of years.
Very good. Now, how many F's, as in Frank, letter F's, are in the box? If you know the answer, please do not shout it. Oh, have you?
Yeah.
All right, well, she's already done this. How many guessed 3 F's? Right there? How many guessed 4? Be honest, come on. 4? 5? How about 6? Now, of you that said 6, who saw this before? 6. All right, you're right. There's actually 6 F's in the box. Everybody give her a hand.
She's already done it. So finished files are the results of years of scientific study combined with the experience of years. Yes, you probably got that. You may sit down now. Thank you so much for the IQ test. I would like for you to face the crowd, sir. What's your name?
Sean.
Sean, everybody. Does Sean got game? Does anyone know what that means? No? Is he cool? Is he hip? Does anyone know Sean? Oh, okay. Well, that explains a ton. All right, don't look at the screen. I'm going to ask you 5 questions, okay? Now, you can hold this now because I don't need a microphone. I actually sing in a band and I have to scream a lot. So, how many of each animal did Moses bring into the ark with him? If you know the answer, don't blurt it. Yeah, go ahead. 2.
2. I remember the story a little different. Now, how many know Moses actually went up into the mount for 40 days and got those 2 tablets we call the 10 Commandments? Noah actually had a boat that carried 2 of each animal.
Moses split the sea, Noah rowed his boat.
Did Moses read the ark was what I asked you. He got it wrong, everyone. Alrighty, question 2. Is it possible to end a sentence with the word the? If it is, give me an example, yes or no. No, don't blurt it.
No.
No. What about the one I just used? Is it possible to end a sentence with the word the?
Yes.
That's a sentence. That's a sentence. It is a properly structured sentence. Now, have you taught English before? Yeah, see, it's a properly structured sentence, actually. But it is properly structured. Thank you. All right, because I had to get that clarified, too. Question 3. What is the name of the raised print that deaf people use?
Deaf people don't use raised
Oh,
print.
yeah! Woo! How many got that wrong? Come on, church, huh?
Blind
How many
people
got it wrong?
use
'Cause I heard a lot of
Braille.
people go, Braille, when you weren't supposed to blurt it out. All right, question 4. Is it proper to say egg yolks is white or egg yolks are white? Why? There's always one in the crowd. Always one. Were you a class clown?
No.
Were you a class clown? Yeah.
I was not.
Is it proper to say egg yolks is white or egg yolks are white?
Not proper.
Well, there is a proper way to say it. Is it proper to say egg yolks is white or egg yolks are white?
Egg yolks are white.
Well, they're yellow, actually. Egg yolks are yellow. How many got that wrong, huh? All right. Here we go. Last one, I promise. Spell the word shop. Just shop.
S-H-O-P.
Yes, sir. One more time.
S-H-O-P.
What do you do when you come to a green light? You
Go forward.
Oh, yeah. Think about that one. Thank you, sir. Everybody give Sean a round of applause. He actually got 2 out of 5. Look at that.
There's actually a point to that. I'm glad he stopped and thunk, right? Sir, I would like for you to stand right there. What's your name, by the way?
Brian.
Brian, everybody give it up for Brian. He's brave. He's brave. Now there's 3 phrases in the triangles here. I want you to read each phrase in the triangles out loud.
Paris in the spring. Bird in the hand. Once in a life.
How many got that wrong? Paris in the spring. Bird in the hand. Once in a lifetime. How many got that wrong? Come on, be honest, guys. Thank you, Brian. We appreciate it. Give him a round of applause. There's a reason we do this IQ test. Jake's going to explain a little bit more than that.
Well, again, I want to do a little brief intro here. Bradley Dean has been traveling the country, actually. We've been in 11 states here in the past 11 months. We're working on 12 now. This will be our 12th in 12 months. And Bradley grew up a fatherless kid. He grew up without a dad or a mom, no structure in his home. A lot of the folks that you guys are talking about that are involved in a lot of these issues, that was how he was trained and raised. And as he grew up, he got involved in the sex, drugs, rock and roll lifestyle. Now, how many of you know we could use a few youth, recruit a few youth into our movement right now? Absolutely. Bradley, after he became a Christian, he started crying out to God. Nobody led him this way. It wasn't a church thing. It wasn't like the TV preachers, you know, give your life to Jesus, send in money. And God started to answer his prayers. And what Bradley did after his life was turned, he became a Christian. He's an ordained minister. He started going into public high schools because, hey, that's where kids are, right? Last I checked, right? And they're being brainwashed day in and day out. As Bradley started doing that, he got involved in college campuses as well, doing assembly programs. And next thing you know, people started saying, how are you doing what you're doing? How are you articulating our message and winning the next generation? They gave him a nationally syndicated radio broadcast. Have you ever heard of the Sons of Liberty radio broadcast? Many of you in here maybe don't know yet, but you're going to find out tonight. We're going to have information about that afterwards. How many people have heard of WorldNet Daily or Western Journalism? Those are both outlets, along with 20 to 25 outlets that publish Bradley's columns every single week. So articulating this message to you and I in this room is important. But what's more important is running it to the next generation. That's what Bradley does. How do you do all of this? You've got to love. Many people say, I don't understand how you are able to do what you do. Bradley, what is the trick? Well, there's an analogy told of a woman who actually lost her son. He escaped out of a village and climbed up into a mountain. So they got all the best climbers, all the best woodsmen, hunters in the village, and they went on a search party to get this son. They got up to a precipice where they saw the young man, but they couldn't breach the precipice. They just couldn't get up. So they all sat down around a fire, and they started strategizing, what are we going to do? Then they turned over on the side, and they saw the woman walking down the edge of the precipice with the son. They said, how did you do that? We're the strongest, bravest, smartest, best men in the village. We couldn't do it. She said, it wasn't your son. Until we own this generation and we care that much, or we're going to stop at nothing, we're not going to reach them. And Bradley Dean is just that man. So I'd like to introduce to you tonight, Mr. Bradley Dean.
We actually left Minneapolis. We left Minneapolis at 2 o'clock, 2:55 today. It was 12 below zero. That's California, and it was 70 degrees, so a good place to be, guys. Last time I was here was right before the elections, and after we had left California, we did some more tea parties in California, then we went to the East Coast, and we tried to shake the tree up over there as well. And then what we did is we ended up going to the RNC in Florida as well. And once we got to the Republican National Convention, I kept noticing the same thing all over the country, and I noticed it here again tonight. There's no young people. And what I did notice is I noticed that Obama and his administration were going from state to state, college to college to college to college. And when you do your homework and you find out who Mussolini was and Mao Zedong and Adolf Hitler and Stalin, you start seeing this reoccurring theme going on, folks. And you see what dictators do. They go to the next generation. And we've done 340 high schools in this country in 22 different states because we see kids are in public schools trying to figure out why their pastors love them so much and why their parents love them so much, yet they hate this administration. Yet 86% of those that put their kids into public schools are the conservatives, the Christians, and the patriots. And the kids are trying to figure that out. So what you see is you see a whole lot of hypocrisy going on out there. You go to Article 10 of the Bill of Rights, you can clearly see federal government has no business educating your kids. When you begin to see what they're teaching your kids, it's pretty incredible, guys. International Baccalaureate, No Child Left Behind. And
So what we decided to do is be a part of the answer rather than being a part of the problem. But when I was at the RNC, I noticed that when we got back, I started paying attention to the polls, and I started paying attention as to what was going on with Obama, because I could literally walk down the street, I could get gas. I noticed that people really didn't like the guy no matter where I was. Literally. State to state, gas station, restaurants. Hey, what do you think of Obama? What do you think of Obama? What do you think of Romney? Kind of going back and forth. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't catch anybody really stand in support of the man. And it's interesting when you look at the DNC, the Democratic National Convention. He was going to have a convention with 74,000 people, and he had to move it because he couldn't get 74,000 people. He had to move it into a stadium where he couldn't fill 20,000 seats. I want you to listen to what I'm telling you. And then I noticed that they published in Wisconsin that he filled up 18,000 seats, Obama did, when he went to Wisconsin. The problem with that was there's only 5,000 seats in that arena. And I don't know what's funny about that at all. Due to the fact that I'm not talking about a third world country, I'm talking about your country. And then what I noticed is they couldn't even get 200 people. Stevie Wonder couldn't even get 200 people to show up in support of Barack Hussein Obama. Doesn't that strike anybody as, well, kind of being odd? Does anybody remember what happened in 2010? How many people were unseated in government? 65 people. But all of a sudden, just a couple months back, Barack Hussein Obama comes in out of nowhere and just stomps Romney to the ground. How did that happen? Well, when you begin to pay attention as to what you're dealing with, friends, you're going to begin to understand that it's time to get radical. It is literally time to get radical, because you're not playing with a guy that plays by the rules, folks. A king that is not ruled by law is no king at all, and this man is not a king. He's a dictator wannabe, and you're seeing all the earmarks with every step of the way. He's not being ruled by the Constitution, the laws of our republic. He's warring against the people. He's demoralizing the American people. He's attacking the Constitution. He's at war with God, in essence. Let me just say this. He who spits against heaven will surely fall on his own back. It's not a good place to put yourself. And I believe what the Lord is looking for is people that are willing to stand up and do this stuff, just like this young lady that I just seen up here a couple minutes ago. I sat in here for a half an hour listening to everybody complain about the branches on the tree, and then I heard this woman get up here and say, we need to lay the axe to the root of the tree. Justice is the guardian of liberty. You have a fiscal problem in your country because you have a moral problem with your government. Hello. Boy, you know, if I was at a black church right now, they'd be standing up saying, Bradley, preach it on, bro.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to get a little soul. Again, I'm talking about your country. Justice is the guardian of liberty. These people need to be held responsible for the crimes against we the people. Therein lies the answer right there. Right there. So anyways, that's what we started doing. We started doing high school assemblies across the country to get back to that. And when I do high school assembly, friends, what I do is I say, hey, listen, I just want you to respect my time, because if you don't respect my time, I'm going to get little D up here and you're going to respect his time. And when he comes up, all the girls gaga goo goo, and they think that's really cute. And I'll say, hey, listen, okay, you're going to listen to D if you're not going to listen to me. And this is what happens if you don't want to listen to me, and D gets mad. And then what I do is I show the kids, the younger generation, the collegiate students, if you don't want to listen to D, you're going to listen to Buggy, or you're going to listen to Pickle. Those are my two boys. And really what I'm saying is this is the last cat that fell to their victim, or fell victim to their wrath, actually. And I'm really trying to say in a cool way, please don't be a cotton-headed ninny muggins. I want you guys to stop and think about what I'm laying out for you. Just think about the word game or the word play that you hear all day long through the state-run media. I'm just going to throw these at you. And again, I want you to think about it, because this is true stuff. You ever wonder why the sun lightens our hair but darkens our skin? Food for thought. You ever wonder why women can't put on mascara with their mouth closed? You ever wonder why you never see psychic wins lottery? Or what about this one? Why is abbreviation such a long word? You ever wonder why? Abbreviation. Or how about this one? Why is it that doctors call what they do practice? That's kind of scary, isn't it? Or what about this one? Why is it that lemon juice is made with artificial flavoring and dishwashing liquid is made with real lemons? These are all true. It's a wordplay. Why is it the man that invests all of your money, why is he called a broker? Or why is it that sheep don't shrink when it rains? Come on, I know that some of you guys in here have thought about that before, because I have. But why is it the time with the slowest traffic is called rush hour? You ever wonder why? Or what about this one? Why isn't there any mouse-flavored cat food? Or what about this one? Why is chili called chili when it's served hot? Or how about this one? Why didn't Noah swat both those mosquitoes? Why do they sterilize the needle for lethal injection? It's not like the dude's not going to die anyways, right? This guy's over here trying to figure out what I'm saying to him. Like, what? You ever wonder why? You know that little indestructible black box that is used on airplanes? Why don't they make the whole airplane out of that stuff? Oh, yeah. Why do they call them apartments when they're all stuck together? Or what about this one? If con is opposite of pro, is Congress opposite of progress? See? Hey guys, I just want to hold responsibility to whom we are accountable. Government is an extension of who we are. Government is an extension of what we allow them to be. John Adams, the second president of the United States, rightly said that the church is called to be the moral compass of society. When that goes, all goes. Well, that wasn't funny anymore, I guess. We'll go to the next point. If flying is so safe, why do they call it the terminal? That's rather morbid, isn't it? But it's really true. You guys ever see the movie The Passion of the Christ? Well, you got to see it. Did you know that after 5 days, Mel Gibson made $125 million? After 7 days, that movie made $144.6 million. It went overseas. It became the #1 independent film in history, and it made more than $1 billion. #1 independent film in history. Hollywood would not help Mel Gibson promote or distribute that movie. They would not help him with 1 red cent. When I was doing high school assemblies, I went to Kansas and I noticed this sign. And by the way, I've never seen one of these a day in my life. But they put a sign up warning people before they go see The Passion of the Christ. And this is what it said. To moviegoers, The Passion of the Christ is rated R and contains graphic depictions of brutality. It is spoken in Aramaic and Latin with English subtitles so we could understand what they were saying. AMC, that's the movie theater owners, strongly advise parents to learn more about the film before deciding if it's appropriate for their children to enter in and watch the movie. Really. You know what's interesting about that is Hollywood does nothing but promote sex, a little sex, a whole lot of sex, a whole lot of murder. Why do kids kill? A whole lot of murder, and even cannibalism. Now friends, these are the same movies that were playing during The Passion of the Christ. Passion of the Christ, sequences of violence, rated R, warning sign. Again, never seen it a day in my life. Monster, strong violence, sexual content, pervasive language, no warning sign, that was rated R. Interesting. Calendar Girls, nudity, language, drug-related material, yet no warning sign, that was PG-13. And 21 grams. Geez, what do you think that one's about? Language, sexuality, violence, drug use, yet no warning sign. Samuel Adams said, he was a Sons of Liberty, by the way, he said, well, the people are virtuous, they cannot be subdued, but when once they lose their virtue, their morality, they will be ready to surrender their liberties to the first external or internal invader. Isn't that interesting? I came up with my own sign. Tell me what you guys think. The notice to moviegoers should state, AMC and filmmaking hypocrites advise parents to learn more about the film industry before deciding if it's appropriate for their children to even enter into a movie theater. What do you think of that sign? That's exactly right. G-rated films are far better at the box office than R-rated films. You probably didn't know that. It's not about the money, it's about the indoctrination. Hollywood's not hurting for money, friends. They just want to indoctrinate a new generation so they can control that generation. I'll get to that in a minute. R-rated films are released 12 times more than G-rated films. Look at the money. G-rated films average 92.3 million on average. R-rated films 17.9 million on average. In 1946, Production Movie Code of America, Motion Pictures of America, did you know, friends, that you couldn't say nuts to you, dang, lousy, or jerk during a movie? I want to say that again. In 1946, you couldn't say nuts to you, dang, lousy, or jerk during a movie. Did you know that the churches used to vet all the movies before the American public would watch them? All the way up until 1968? They gave up their post. If a crime was committed during a movie, the criminal had to be punished for his crimes. That is key. Justice is the guardian of liberty. If the man that committed the crime during a movie, he had to be brought to justice before the end of the movie. That was law in our country. Not what our kids being taught. Just the exact opposite. This guy right here, he was one of the Caesars. He rightly said, give men a piece of bread and a spectacle, entertain them, and he said, I can do whatever I want with them. For all you TV watchers, for all you movie watchers, listen to what he said. As long as I'm entertaining you, I'm controlling you. Tame derived from entertain means to stop from entering in. What's going on in your country? You're being controlled through entertainment. Again, Samuel Adams, if virtue and knowledge are diffused among the people, they will never be enslaved. This will be their greatest security. So simply put, people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge, Hosea 4:6. I'm going to lay a premise for you, a foundation for you. I guarantee you, you've never thought about the stuff that I've thought. It's taken me 12 years to do the research, and it's right in front of our face, friends. The answers are right in front of our face. Woodrow Wilson said, we're trying to do a futile thing if we don't know where we came from or what we've been about. All the way up until 1962, they used to teach George Washington's farewell address. That's no longer in the school curriculum. History books are being changed every 3 to 7 years in public schools. Misinformation is being dropped in the public educational system purposely. In certain states, up to 12,000 words per book. It's false history. It's not who we are. Thomas Jefferson said if a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be. In other words, in youth talk, if a nation expects to be stuck on stupid, you expect what never was and never will be. Samuel Adams again. You know, a lot of times when I ask the kids in public schools, and colleges by the way, more so in the colleges today than even in the high schools, and just from a couple that we have done. But it's interesting when I ask the kids or the students in colleges, what form of government have we been given? Are we a democracy or are we a republic? And I want to ask you guys a question. Who was the last president to actually acknowledge that we are a republic? Thank you. Listen to that. How many presidents have inundated the last 4 presidencies have inundated the American people with our democracy, our democracy, our democracy. We are not a democracy. I just asked them to simply say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under my Father, under God, indivisible, undividable, with liberty and justice for all. Notice the words. But if you thought we were a democracy, this is how you would say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of whatever the people want. Sound familiar? And to the democracy for which it falls. What's happening, friends? One nation under a wannabe dictatorship, with bondage and injustice for whosoever believed that we were a democracy. We are not a democracy, we are a republic. Fisher Ames, architect of the First Amendment, said, a democracy is a volcano which conceals the fiery materials of its own destruction. It's exactly what's going on. What do the people want? They want their rights. Well, let me say this. John F. Kennedy was right when he said, listen, our rights come not from the generosity of the state, but they come from the hand of God. See, friends, when God gives you rights, you don't have to settle for privileges. That's right. And who is the state at war with today? They're at war with God. That's all you have to do is go to Washington, D.C. to understand exactly what I'm telling you. Oh, that's a little weird. Well, if you don't understand that, how are you going to be liberated? If you don't even realize that you have to fight the good fight of faith to maintain the rights that God gave you, how are you going to remain in the freedom that you've been given? You're going to lose it, and you're going to lose it really quick. Because this generation coming up behind you is believing that they are a democracy, and they are going after all of their supposed rights that this president wants to give them. James Madison, the father of our Constitution, said democracy is the most vile form of government, and you are seeing the word vile defined today. In every sense of that word. Remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. Now, I just came into California and I was told that you guys are $80 billion upside down. That's unthinkable. That's crazy. Whoa. What's happening? This is exactly what's happening in this country today, friends. Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, a democracy is nothing more than mob rule. You know how they take polls all the time? You ever wonder why when they come over these immoral polls and they're really high? Where did they take those? I'll tell you where. In the White House. That's where they took those polls. And then they throw it out at the American people like it's factual, when in fact it is not factual. Everything this administration does is through deception. Everything he does is through deception. For those that didn't know, did you know that all the information that you get through the state-run media is all vetted by the Obama administration?
Yep.
Dictators do that, friends. You know who the last one to do that was? Mussolini, Adolf Hitler. Oh, that would never happen here. No, I know. I know it would never happen here, friends. It is happening here. What the people want is a democracy. As a republic, it's an anchor. You're principled. I had a guy one time ask me on a radio show, he was trying to get me one of those gotcha questions on the air in front of Minneapolis, St. Paul. He said, so Bradley, what's your opinion? I said, well, let me tell you something. My opinion doesn't matter any more than your opinion matters. I said, the problem with this country is we all used to be rooted in the same principles, but we've lost that now. And then we wonder why we're divided on a daily basis. Here, let me say this. You guys are the Tea Partiers. The right always complains about the left. Isn't that amazing? It worked. They're dividing America into believing that there's a right and a left. But let me say this. Right, because that's supposed to be you, there wouldn't be a left if you were always doing the right thing. Because when you talk about the left, you know what you're talking about. You are talking about criminals in government. And that's exactly what they are. There's no such thing as a left. What do we got, two constitutions? Well, when the Democrats are in power, they can go ahead and do what they want to do. And when the Republicans are in power, they can go ahead and do what they want to do. You have one constitution. Let me ask you something, friends. When those boys go overseas to fight some unconstitutional war because the American people didn't stop it with their Congress, and then they blame the kids when they come back in boxes, when those guys are over there and those girls are over there fighting wars for me and you, our military, they swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic.
That's right.
Foreign and domestic. They're over there dying, coming back in boxes, trying to figure out, wait a second, we're upholding the Constitution, and when we come back home, they're fighting over who's getting their way. We're ruled by law, not by opinion, friends. And I don't care if it's the president pulling up one of his 23 illegal executive orders or not. And when the American people take on that attitude, it's over.
That's right.
And that's the attitude the veterans have and our military has. And it's the same attitude that we better take. We don't need any more politicians, friends. We need patriots. That's what we need. We need men of God and women of God. Does anybody understand the definition of the word patriot? To uphold or to magnify dying laws. That's what that means. It means to uphold dying laws. Whose laws? I'll say it this way, for the sake of time. If you don't want to listen to God's 10 commandments, you're going to listen to man's 10,000 commandments. And America is settling for man's 10,000, rather than going back to God's simple 10 commandments. Did you know that Senator John Glenn said that we could not enact most bills that we pass around here if we had to follow the rule of the Constitution? Can I ask you veterans something? They are desecrating your memories, sir and women, that have fought for us. The American people are allowing this administration to desecrate the memory of those that fought, bled, and died for us. Take that one and put it in your heart. Because every time we let this administration commit another crime, we are allowing this administration to desecrate the memories of them boys in every veteran memorial across this country. And I ain't going to stand down and put up with it. And I have for 17 years. And I'm not trying to be a hard guy. I got 5 boys. And I'm fighting for their future and their hope, and also for your kids as well. It's interesting how most people laugh it off. But I got a question for you folks. Who's going to take care of your posterity? Because if you're going to put your posterity into the hands of this dictator, you might want to think about that again. Read Obamacare, friends. Look what's going on in public school, friends. We'll get to that in just a little bit. The Constitution of the United States, I love my forefathers so much. I love the price paid for my liberties, and in the natural, I love what my father did through his son, Jesus Christ, big time. And so in saying that, to go back to the natural, I was reading the Constitution of the United States of America. Just think. And I went and found Article 4, Section 4 in the Constitution. And this is what it says. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government. Next time you hear a politician talk about democracy, ask them what they mean. Tell them to define it. Tell them to show you in the Constitution when they talk about democracy. We have a constitutional republic, friends. We're not a democracy. Ask them. Ask them where they got that information from. Just like Pelosi, you can ask her. She doesn't know what the Constitution says, and you know it as well as I do. You know it as well as I do. There's nothing I dread so much as division of the republic into two great parties, each under its leaders and converting measures in opposition to each other. Is that what you're seeing? Second President of the United States. Oh, they're blaming this guy on the right and the left and right and the left and right. It's their fault, their fault. Let me ask you who loses, though. The American people do. Because they're allowing the charades. I did some homework on the Republicans one time. And I'm on the radio in 52 countries, 53 including our own. And we're all over the United States. And I wanted to see what was going on in government. And so what I did is I started to dig into the Republican side. I wanted to know their records. And folks, I'm talking about some serious corruption. The corruption was just as bad, if not worse, on the right than it was on the left. And America loses because they think we're a two-party system, when in fact, keep in mind, the boys are fighting to maintain one constitution, not two. So next time you hear, well, this, or they want to play the blame game, just get out of the debate, because there isn't one. They're pushing a lie. A republic is based off of an empire of laws, said John Adams, laws which cannot be changed. As a republic, you have rights given to you by God. As a democracy, you have privileges given unto you by the state. And listen to what our seventh president said. The Bible is the rock upon which our republic rests. Every president, all the way up to Barack Hussein Obama, has acknowledged that we are a Christian nation. I wrote the president 2 times, this president. He responded both times. I asked him about the abortion issue and the 3,700 babies that are being slaughtered in the womb every day. This man voted over 241 times to make sure that babies are killed before they get out of the womb. Well, he was in Senate for 142 days. How'd that work? Did you also know that he voted because he wanted to make sure that if the baby came out alive, there'd be a second doctor in the room to make sure he was snuffed out? Oh, and he cares about the kids? You've got to be kidding me. You judge a man by his fruit. And when we look at this man's fruit, I'm telling you what, it is opposite. As to when this man says black, look white. When he says north, look south. When he says east, go the other direction, because he's doing the opposite of what he says. For those that didn't know, that Barack Hussein Obama is also a Saul Alinsky student. Okay, Saul Alinsky, he was a wannabe dictator. You know, he thanks Satan in his book. And Obama has publicly acknowledged that Saul Alinsky was his master, his teacher. You got to keep in mind when you're dealing with these people, it's never about the issue, it's always about the revolution. They're only here to destroy, that's it. That's why there's no plan to bring about any resolve with the economy. And everybody's looking for all these answers. They don't want answers, friends. Just ask Saul Alinsky. Just ask him. And they like to shout and shoot, don't they? This race card that you guys were talking about earlier. Oh, they love to throw the race card. But you know what I'm saying? Man, they are some serious racists, aren't they? Oh, they are. They love to pull your hair, smack your face, and then cry victim when, in fact, they're the ones guilty of the crime. See, that's totalitarianism. And that's what you're up against in this country. If you can learn that lesson right there, you will win the day. You will win the day. You got to get out of the debates. You got to get off the defensive and get on the offensive and take it to them. And when you do, you ready for this? They don't know how to respond to you. They don't know how to respond to you when you mean what you say. And it's interesting, I see women all over the country standing up and doing the job that men are supposed to do. And they're winning the day, and I praise God for every one of them. The Bible is the cornerstone for American liberty. Look who said that, guys. Just wanted to make sure you see that, no lines between church and state. You know, barring the government from what they're doing today, right? You heard that from the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union. Roger Baldwin, the founder of the ACLU, said the end of the ACLU is communism. You know, lines between church and state is found in the USSR, Article 52. Has anybody read Article 1 of the Bill of Rights? Because that bars these jokers. See, the Bill of Rights is a bunch of thou shall nots to governments. Thou shall not. Congress shall make no law. Right? Congress shall make no law. We need to put it back into perspective. This man was the President of the United States, as was he the President of public schools when he was the President. The two books that were made mandatory in the public high schools were the Bible and Watts hymnals. All the way up until 1946, you used to have to graduate Bible courses before you could graduate public schools in Texas. And what's interesting about that, 700,000 students today in America every year can graduate without even knowing how to read their own diplomas. Nothing funny about it. Hey, let me say it this way. Go ahead and keep laughing, because you got to keep in mind, they're going to rule over you in about 10 to 15 years. Nothing funny about it. Look at this. Alexander Hamilton, he said, "For on my own part I sincerely esteem it, the Constitution, a system which without the finger of God," how did God give the 10 Commandments? With his finger? Exodus 20. Look at these forefathers. 25 of the 55 signers had their seminary degrees. The least religious signer, Thomas Paine, was over in France rebuking the scientists for not giving due praise to the creator that created the science that they are discovering. Science is the discovery of what God's creation is. We have to keep that. So is politics, by the way. Science is the study of creation. Thomas Jefferson said of France during the Revolution and America, he said the difference between us and them is the difference between heaven and hell. Their form of government and our form of government. William Blackstone, he was a rocker in the 1700s. By the way, my hair is real, his is not. But that hair is actually made out of yak. But in saying that, listen to what he said. William Blackstone, great, admirable, honorable individual. He said, "No enactment of man can be considered law in this country unless it conforms to the law of God." Liberty is the right to do what the law permits. Absolutely. What are the younger generations being taught today? Liberty is go ahead and do whatever you want to do. No. We haven't been given freedom to do what we want to do. We've been given freedom to do what we ought to do. And it's interesting, the kids in this new up-and-coming generation think that they can go ahead and do whatever they want, and it's liberty, because after all, that's what they're being taught through MTV, the state-run media, television programs, Hollywood, so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is I can't drive down, if the posted law is 55 miles an hour, I can't go 75, and when the cop pulls me over, I can't look at him and say, "Hey, I'm as free to go as fast as I want to go." No, the cops, what is he going to do? He's going to point his finger back at the law, which America has allowed to be lowered since 1962, God's moral law. He's going to point his finger back at the law and say, "You violated the law." He's going to write a ticket, your judgment, and he's going to put it in your hand. You know what the younger generation's being taught? To rip up the ticket, throw it on the ground, and say, "Who are you to judge me?" And guess who taught them that? The professed church. You know, legalism, bunch of anarchists in the church. And we're not being ruled by moral law. Oh, really? Did Jesus do away with the law? Did he abrogate the law? Nope. He magnified the law. Look at the cross of Christ. The moral law. And most people in this room should understand what I'm saying. I just did an interview with a guy out in North Carolina. He said when he was a kid, they used to have preachers coming and preach in their schools. Teach them Bible courses. Now we get the older generation saying, "Well, I just don't know if we can do that." Well, the kids don't belong to the state. They belong to you. We have the longest standing constitution in modern history. French Revolution, over 10 years after American Revolution, earned their 15th constitution. Look at this. Brazil, their 7th constitution. You're still in your first. 237 years later. Poland, 6th constitution since 1921. Afghanistan, 5th constitution since 1918. And Russia's into their 4th constitution since 1918. But you still are in your first. Whoa. Our forefathers are pretty smart guys, weren't they? Sources from our founding era, 15,000 writings analyzed, 3,154 quotations and sources. Bible is found to be most quoted by our forefathers. You can see them on your money. You can see Moses and the 10 Commandments in every civil building that you go to. Matter of fact, the flags that were flying during the Revolutionary War were "No king but king," and "Appeal to heaven." You know, the Liberty Bell says, Leviticus 25:10 on it, proclaim liberty throughout all the land. When you look at Lady Liberty, she has that, that Declaration of Independence in her left hand, doesn't she? And you know what it says right under her, broken chains on her feet, simplifying freedom the French gave us? You know what it says? Enlightening the world. How? Through judgment. Through judgment. Isaiah 51. You know, when you read that Declaration of Independence, where do we derive our rights, friends? From our Creator. That's right. Yep, see, if we're not going to be obedient to Him, if we're not going to submit ourselves to God, we're going to be found under the rule of dictators and tyrants. 34% of all documented quotes were from the Bible, from our forefathers. You go to Washington, D.C., you see my daddy's name everywhere. You go to the top of the Washington Monument, you know what it says? It says, praise be to God. All the way up the Washington Monument, you know what you find? Scriptures on the stairs all the way to the top. Bet you didn't know that. You see those Christian crosses over the top of the heads of those boys that sacrifice their all for me and you too, haven't you? Oh, we're not a Christian nation. I'm going to be on 2 radio programs tomorrow out of Washington, D.C. And they're both atheists. Well, one of them's an atheist, so I look forward to dealing with a man that doesn't believe in God. I'm going to tell him you don't have to believe in trucks neither, but what happens if you stand in front of one? Right? By the way, during the foundations of our country, Ben Franklin said there was no such thing as an atheist. You've also heard this in the military, there's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole. Amen. But let me go on here. Your foundations, friends, just a few. Separation of powers came from Jeremiah 17:9. Immigration laws, Leviticus 19:34. Maybe this is why Obama contradicts the Bible all the time. President must be a natural-born citizen, Deuteronomy 17:15. Man, he just hates that word, doesn't he? Witness in capital punishment, Deuteronomy 17:6. Folks, do you realize that when you look in the Bible, where do you see prisons? God never ordained them. God never ordained jails. You have prisons today because it creates a bureaucracy. 3 strikes and you're out. They're teaching kids how to commit the crimes to feed the bureaucracy. What happens when crimes are committed and they're dealt with right away? It puts the fear of God in others not to commit the crime. We used to do that in this country. We left that off. So we get to deal with the fruit of it. 3 branches of government, Isaiah 33:22. Tax exemptions for churches is Ezra 7:24. Republicanism came from 1821, Exodus. It's all right in front of our face. Did you know that George Washington said religion and morality are essential pillars of civil society? He's talking about the Bible and our founding documents. You want the answers? Then put your feet back on the rock and then fight. So let's jump topics really quick. If the media can convince you that we're a democracy, always remember what Ralph Waldo Emerson rightly said. I want you guys to remember this too. I didn't say it, they said it. How many of you guys watch the news? Okay, cool. Thank you for your honesty. I just want you to know, you might not believe this, but you're being lied to on a daily basis. I'm being facetious, of course. I mean, if you guys had eggs right now, you'd probably whale them at me, right? But look at this. Democracy becomes a government of bullies tempered by editors. What happens when you stand up in public schools? The state-run media is all over you. They demonize you. They polarize you. Southern Poverty Law Center that used to support the lynching of black people, the KKK, back in the 60s, are now jumping ship. And now they're trying to play the protector to the homosexual communities. You know, they act like they're protecting someone. In fact, when you look at the fruit of those organizations, you'll see that they, again, are playing the totalitarianism, authoritarianism. But I want you guys to understand, I didn't say it, they said it. Because you're going to get mad. Don't get mad at me. Here's the big news. In 1917, I didn't say 1999, I said 1917, Congressman Oscar Callaway enters a disturbing statement into the congressional records, and this is what he found. J.P. Morgan, Time Life Man of the Year, a banker, steel tycoon, and a bully. He hired 12 high-ranking managers because what he wanted to do is determine the most influential newspapers in America. Listen carefully. J.P. Morgan wanted to know how many newspapers it would take to control the policy, not the law. Look at me, guys. Policy, not the law. In this country, policy follows law. Law does not follow policy. You got it backwards. Look at this. To control the policy of the daily press of the United States. You ever wonder why ABC and CBS and MSNBC and you know, all these outlets, why are they all promoting or promulgating the same message? Because it's all coming from the same source. Well, he's part of the problem. As a matter of fact, Media Matters just came after me 2 weeks ago. Did they go after you? Well, they should. Thank you for saying that. They should. To control the policy of the daily press of the United States, the 12 found that it was only necessary to purchase the control of 25 of the greatest papers in 1917 to brainwash the people into believing what they wanted you to believe in. Look at this. An agreement was reached, the policy of the papers was bought, and an editor was placed at each paper to ensure that all published information was keeping of their policy. Not what the facts were. Not what the facts were. Hey guys, what happened to Benghazi? I know it's a big deal today, but how come no one's talking about it? Well, hey folks, what happened to Fast and Furious? I mean, you got a president that put weapons that he's attempting to ban today into the hands with his DOJ, Department of Injustice, Eric Holder, the Attorney General. He's a listen folks, they are criminal. Let's say this, adults, criminals. Listen to me. They put high-powered weapons into the hands of Mexican drug lords. 300 Mexicans died. The Mexican beauty queen just died 2 weeks ago from one of the guns that this administration put into the hands of Mexican drug lords. You know what that was all about? Brian Terry was killed as well. A Border Patrol agent protecting me and you guys. You know what? How come no one's talking about that? You know why he did that? Because he wanted to blame the American people for the crimes that he instigated and incited. Most people don't think that through. You know, in Benghazi, I don't know if everybody's aware of this, neither, same exact thing. Putting high-powered rifles into the hands of the Muslim Brotherhood, your enemies.
No, now new jets that are going to be aimed at Israel.
F-16.
Okay, you guys get the point. Now just hang on, we'll talk about this afterwards. I want you to think about this. You need to think about this. How come the media did not cover it? It was said that if he was dealt with Fast and Furious, this is why he's busy trying to cover this whole thing up. If he would have been dealt with Fast and Furious, there would have been no Benghazi. He would have been impeached. Do you understand? There is a word called impeachment, friends, and we still have that. We have the power to continuously go forward in the system of government that has been given unto us by our forefathers. Impeachments. Let me keep going here. They're trying to rearrange reality to become the reality that they want you to believe in. Okay? A majority of those that report the news have no knowledge of right and wrong. We went and talked to a journalist in Minnesota. He was a high-profile guy on Channel 4 WCCO. And we asked him the question, how do you tell us the difference between right and wrong? That's all we wanted to know. We weren't being smart, trying to be cute. We just wanted to know from them. He said this. He said, if you're asking journalists to be an arbiter to decide differences of right and wrong, of morality, he said, you're asking the wrong people. No, true that. True that. But look what he said right after that. He said, my job is to determine where fairness and justice is failing. Wait a second. If you don't know the difference between right and wrong, how do you know it's fair and unfair, just or unjust? They're confused people, folks. They're confused people. John Adams said our Constitution was made for a moral and a religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Keep that in mind when you're talking about the homosexual agenda. Without morals, a republic cannot subsist any length of time. Charles Carroll said, they therefore who are decrying the Christian religion, whose morality is so sublime, he said they are undermining the solid foundation of morals. They are attacking your foundations. Homosexual marriage has nothing to do with marriage, friends. If you go to Canada, you can see what homosexual marriage is about. They want to lower the consent for anal intercourse from 16 to 14 years old. Did you also know in Canada, too, the first thing they did is they attacked the church. They made the church perform ceremonies for homosexuals. Did you also know the first thing they did was attack homeschoolers? Homosexuality has nothing to do with homosexuality. Has nothing to do. It's about getting their way and giving rule over to the state and take away your sovereignty, which God gave you. It's exactly what it's about. You guys are in California. Where's the court case with homosexual marriage? 7 million Californians already voted on the issue. Why is it in court again? That's where they want it to be. because they want to manipulate it and debate the pith and marrow out of it. That's why Judge Vaughn Walker illegally did what he did in the state of California. And before he was impeached, he resigned. Because that didn't go over very well in California, I understand. But let me get back to the media here. How many of you guys in this room believe what the state-run media reports? Be honest. Okay, cool, I'm glad. Are you with the state-run media? Good for you.
Media complex, we all know.
Okay, good. Okay. He believes the media. I said the state-run media. Now look at Robert Lichter and Stanley Rothman, two media scholars, interviewed 240 news anchors, editors, and writers, and this is what they found out. 47% of those that promulgate or proclaim the news through the state-run media see nothing wrong with adultery. Did you know that adultery is against the law in every state of our union? Yeah, the laws haven't been enforced since 1944. 76% of those that promulgate the news through the state-run media see nothing wrong with homosexuality. Did you know that all the way up until 1961, it was illegal in every state? If you were busted in the act of sodomy in Rhode Island, you would have went to prison for 21 years. All the way up until 1973, it was considered a mental illness. Now what are they telling you? You bullies. By the way, GLSEN, they said that bullying is only affirmation of the homosexual lifestyle. They know exactly what they're doing. They're not the victims of anything. They're the assailants. They're attacking the foundations. The NEA, by the way, has a drag queen caucus now. They have a homosexual caucus. I don't see anything funny about that. Obama's safe school czar, Kevin Jennings, you know, they got rid of his little fanny too. Obama has appointed over 226 homosexuals, transvestites, to high positions in your federal government, and another one is Alina Kagan. She is responsible for queerifying Harvard. She is a lesbian radical, out of control. But Kevin Jennings, he wrote a foreword to a book called Queering the Elementary. His icon was Harry Hay from an organization called North American Man-Boy Love Association. Their motto, walking down the street with homosexuals and in their parades, is, you ready for the slogan? Sex before 8, before it's too late. Do you want me to keep going on? Folks, kids are being violated like crazy in public schools on a daily basis in this country. In this country. And the NEA is attempting to protect these people of their crimes. We live in dangerous times, guys. I can go on and on and on and on. Dan Savage, it gets better. He's the guy that MTV pushes. He's the guy out there attacking anybody that doesn't agree with the homosexual lifestyle. But if you listen to what he says, rather than pay attention to what he says and what he does, you know him by what he does rather than what he says. He said about his political opposition that they need to be dragged behind a pickup by a rope until there's nothing left but the rope. Folks, that's hate crime legislation. He just told on himself. What he wishes for those that stand against him or oppose him, he's guilty of it. He's also the guy that said he thinks about boning Rick Santorum on HBO. Oh, he's a sick one. Santorum went after him, and then I don't know what happened there, but Rick Santorum did go after him. But he's a sick one, guys. 90% of those that promulgate the news to the state-run media, they see nothing wrong with aborting a baby. 3,700 babies a day are being slaughtered in the womb. We're not going to get out of that one, friends. Since 1973, that wasn't on my watch. 57 million babies have been slaughtered in the womb. That's the equivalent to 18 states. Doesn't anybody realize what this is about? This is about population control. Is what this is about. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. You know, I told a guy today on an interview, I said, it's interesting that you see the American people, they're afraid that they're losing the right to bear arms to this dictator, to protect themselves against a tyrannical government. That's the purpose of the Second Amendment, by the way. And all of a sudden he goes, well, so what's the correlation? I said, well, we haven't protected, the American people haven't protected the baby in the womb. Now you're crying up against a government that wants to take away your means of defense? You better bet your bottom dollar there is a spiritual correlation. It's as if God is saying, okay, you don't want to protect your kids? I'm no longer going to protect you. Come on, guys. These are our kids.
86% of those that report to the state-run media never attend church. This is what they said. I did not say this. Richard Salin, former president of CBS, said this. He said, our job is to give people not what they want, but what we decide they ought to have. They are parenting you, friends. Look at this one. News reporters are certainly liberal and left of center. Do you think?
Yeah.
The New York Times is deliberately on purpose pitched to the liberal point of view. Who said that? New York Times, 1950 to 1960. Let me give you another one here. Richard Cohen, he's still shooting his mouth off every once in a while. He said, we are going to impose our agenda on the coverage by dealing with issues and subjects that we choose to deal with. Not what the facts are. Let me give you a couple of them. Fox News, for those that think Fox News is the answer. No. Friends, you might, hey listen, it's not so much as to what Fox said or what they say, it's what they don't say that bothers me.
Yeah.
We report, you decide. It should be rightly reported or said that we decide on what we report. Here's Amber Lyon. Remember when I was talking about the women doing the job? She said that she says she was ordered to report fake stories by CNN, delete unfriendly stories adverse to the Obama administration, and construct stories in specific manners while working for the left-wing network. Communists. Just call them for what they are.
Yeah.
CNN is paid by foreign and the U.S. government for reporting on some events and not reporting on others. The Obama administration pays for CNN's content. Yeah, I got 10 minutes. I got 10 minutes. He just told me. Look at this one. Piers Morgan. Everybody knows who Piers is? You guys know Piers?
Yeah.
Does anybody know Piers' record? Piers, BBC News reported Piers Morgan was fired from his editorial job at the Daily Mirror for publishing fraudulent photographs in May 2004. He was kicked out of England. He has also been implicated in a media phone hacking scandal in Britain. But after all of this, CNN said, hey man, we'll take this guy. Wow, that's incredible. Let me hit one of these topics and then I'll get to the end of my program. You guys remember Britney and Madonna kissing on MTV? If you didn't, your kids did. Isn't it interesting to push this on the American youth, our posterity, the younger generations? Isn't it also interesting that the media just happened to overlook the 7,700 Americans that were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan? Huh. They're coming home and America's on vacation. There's one woman, she wanted to spend one more night with her husband, somebody's son. And if you look at this little man, there's Christian. Christian's a little 8-year-old boy who receives his daddy's flag after being killed over in Iraq. I just got a question for everybody here, friends. Who's going to take care of Christian?
The state.
What?
The state.
The state's going to take care of him. There's the problem right there. The state. No. I'm my brother's keeper. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. If I went to war, I'd want someone to look out for my kid, and I wouldn't want someone to shout out, especially at a Tea Party event. The state will take care of your kid. Guys, come on. Yet they push this. They push this down your throats. They're not asking. Folks, you are running from less than 1.7% of the population. The state-run media is the ones that's blowing this deception up. They're the ones trying to choke any opposition out from standing up against them. Stand up. This is what they did right after this. They pushed an illegal agenda, May 1st, 2004. 25,000 people protested homosexual marriage, which has never been in the history of mankind. There were 1,500 homosexual marriage supporters holding up signs stating, bigots, go home. The media, ABC, CBS, and the Associated Press twisted the truth and told the public that the 1,500 homosexual marriage supporters holding up the signs saying, bigots go home, were the majority and made the 25,000 protesters out to be the minority, totally turning the event to be against the bigots instead of against gay marriage. Completely backwards. That's how you got it. And they love to push fear. If you don't read the newspapers, you're uninformed. If you read the newspapers, you're misinformed. Abortion, the media ignores the wishes of the majority. And John F. Kennedy said back in '62, he said of abortion, he said that's barbaric. In other words, stating that that would never happen here in this country. I want to show you how dummied down you have been. It's illegal to tamper with eagle eggs, but you can go ahead and slaughter 3,700 babies in the womb. It's illegal to kill whales, but 3,700 babies a day are being aborted in this country. This whack, do you guys remember this guy? I think he was still baked on PCP from the 50s or something. But he said people protect what they love. That's right. And he said in order to stabilize world population, we must eliminate 350,000 people per day. You tell me. Here's PETA for you. This guy lost his leg. A PETA spokesperson said they made a billboard and put it out there. Payback is hell. We're glad Wickersham's going to be okay, PETA spokesperson or woman Ashley Byrne told QMI Agency Saturday, but we hope that after experiencing such pain and fear, he will consider the fact that fish feel the same pain and fear when they're hunted. Whenever you see environmentalists, you better run the other way or stand up and deal with them. It's illegal to pick flowers, but it's okay to abort 3,700 babies a day. I seen this billboard right before Richard Pryor passed away into eternity. And it said this: join us in boycotting Kentucky Fried Chicken for its cruelty to chickens. Now, God made those chickens so me and you can enjoy them. And if you don't like that, then I'll just suggest this. Bring some barbecue sauce over to my house, and I'll eat them up for you. But the point is this, friends. People are protesting Kentucky Fried Chicken for cruelty to chickens, yet 3,700 babies a day are aborted in this country. Jake, will you just bring it right to the end for me? Guys, I got kicked. I got a school in Kabul, Missouri shut down because I showed this picture. Life. And there were 600 kids in that high school right in front of me. And the little principal comes out and says, if this offends anybody, you can go ahead and leave. But if I was advocating abortion, they would have had no problem with it. Yeah. And I showed the picture of life. And what happened is there was one kid and one teacher that walked out. The rest of the kids stayed there. And because the kid stayed there, he didn't like that. So what he did is a couple minutes later, he came back and he